Hello and welcome to the Ed209 Unreal section of this DVD. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be putting the model that Chris has set up for us into the Unreal 3 engine. We're going to look at some various ways of doing that. I know Chris has covered the basic static mesh import, and we're going to look at using this as a skeletal mesh and looking into parts of Matinee, getting it to move. We're going to look at some of the basic concerns generally when working with Unreal 3, and we'll point you towards some of the character bits towards the end of this section. If you do want to focus solely on character imports and getting Ed to work in the game engine, suggest having a look at the Megatron Unreal 3 tutorial on 3D Palace. That is completely free and it will show you how to make a custom character. That set, or that tutorial, is very different because in that set we used the Epic biped that comes with Unreal 3, or well, what Epic have provided with us to use. Obviously what Chris has done here is we've got our own custom rig, so if we actually want this to be a player character we have to do a lot of work to get this to function correctly. Towards the end of this set I'll point you in the right directions for that, but be prepared. It is very, very tough and challenging, but a lot of fun, very rewarding. If there's time afterwards, we might do a follow-up set to this particular section to go over the whole host of coding and bits and pieces that you might need to do to get a completely custom rig into a game engine, or into Unreal 3 rather. And to do that, generally what you need to do is make a whole new game type and player code and all the rest of it, so it can be quite tough. So if you do want to do custom characters in Unreal 3, just for testing, always use the Epic biped to start with, and then if you're a bit more adventurous, you'll have to look into game types and pawn controllers. Anyway, enough said. What I've got in front of me is a slightly modified version of what Chris has done. At this point, what you really need to have done is you need to have Ed fully prepped. So that means unwrapped, textured, rigged, you name it. It all needs to be complete. Don't mess around with the engine unless you've finished all of the other sections, because things do go horribly wrong and you don't want to be wasting your time repeating steps. So, what do we need to start this off? Well, first off you need Epic's plugin for 3dsmax, and you can find that on the Unreal Developers Network website, which is udn.epicgames.com. The exporter has stayed the same for the last couple of versions of Unreal, so if you have a version that works, chances are it's still going to play nice. This exporter is called ActorX, so it's the web link at the top that you're going to be needing. And it works for 3dsmax, Maya and XSI. There's not really too much of an overview of how to do this on the website, but Epic sometimes put up a few bits and pieces. I'm using the 32-bit version of 3dsmax 2009, so grab whichever relevant version you want. As you can see, it goes right back down to 3.1 max, so there's all different pieces in here which we can grab, but what you'll need to do is grab one of these files, and as you can see you'll need to actually put it in your plugins directory for Max. Once you've done that, you'll need to restart Max to reload the plugins and reinitiate everything in Max, and then you can start. Incidentally, if you want to know more about Unreal 3, you can look on the Unreal 3 engine part of the UDN, choose either Gears of War mods or Unreal Tournament, and there's a whole host about importing skeletal meshes, animations, static meshes and whatever. These tutorials do get more complicated or better over time, but there really is not that much information in there. Most of it is very simplistic. There's not really a lot about problem solving or getting complicated characters into the game engine. But what you can find, unless they've removed it, is somewhere on this website there are some basic max files and sample files that you can grab, which are really useful for characters. I'm just going to have a nose and see if I can find them, put them in the right way. I think they've changed it. But yeah, on this section you will find somewhere, that sounds a bit ominous, but somewhere on this webpage you will find some of the .max files that you can open, where it's got the Krell skeletons, male skeletons, that sort of thing. Really cool. Just to see how things were rigged and set up for Unreal 3. So that really is the main focus of working with game engines, is re-engineering or going through what somebody else has done and then seeing how you can take it further. Okay, so jump back over to Max. So we've got a mesh, and to find Actor X, it's simple. We just go to our tools, and it'll pop up down here. If yours is not showing under our utilities, what you'll need to do is you can either find it in here, but sometimes it can hide, or we can make our own set of bits and pieces. So if you see I clicked on more, it's not there. But what you can also do, we can load up our sets, and this has got all the utilities in Max, and we can add buttons to this. And what you want to do is, if you want your custom set of buttons to appear whenever you start Max, is you need to call the set Max Default. If I can spell it would help. Doesn't look like I'm going to have much joy today. And with these extra buttons, you can just simply drag and plonk or whatever you want on there. And you just simply find Actor X, drag it on, and it'll be here when you start Max next time. When I click on it, what I get is a various set of options. We're going to go and look through those now. Okay, so with these buttons that we're working with, there's a mix and match of all of these do radically different things, and what you really need to do is you need to set up some folders, names, general sort of housekeeping practices first. So I'm going to find a folder. I've got an Ed209 folder on my desktop. Sometimes you can set these paths, and as you can see, it's just completely ignored with that folder. I'll just show you that again just to see what happened there. Went to Ed209, clicked the use path. What I usually end up doing is actually just copying the path directory, and for some reason it ignores the folder and chooses the desktop. Now if it does that, what that means is it's going to dump anything you create onto your desktop, so make sure it's actually got your folder name there. Next we need a name for our character, so we're going to put Ed209. It's up to you. Some people will go as far as putting skeletal mesh or animation file and different sorts of things. At the moment we are not going to work with animation. We'll do that later on. Just to introduce it though, animation file name is the actual file that's going to hold the data. This is not necessarily too important what you call this, just as long as you understand what it is. The actual bits that are important to the engine is the sequence name. So for instance, we could make a file called ed animations, and the actual sequence is just a walk cycle. Yeah, so just bear that in mind. That's the file for Windows, and that's the one for the engine. The range is down to the number of frames that you're going to use. So you can have 30 frames for a walk of fire or something like that. The actual setup itself, if we look at what it's set to export at the moment, it's saying export all skinned type. Now with this particular rig we've actually got no skinned mesh pieces. It's all linked and set up in hierarchies. So if we were to try and export now, it would probably kill or not even notice our particular bits and pieces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on my H_hips. That will select all of my mesh parts, and you can troll around your mesh just to make sure that's correct. And once you're relatively happy with your selection, I'm going to turn on all textured and all selected, and this is just me being 100% sure at this point. The rest of the options are going to leave as is on my screen. What we can do as well is once you get into this particular process, you can make very different sort of scripts and batch files to do this faster, but it's not necessarily too important at the moment. And those are the settings we're going to use. Okay, so we've set up our directory, set up a name, we've set up a particular type of export, and then all we need to do is hit save mesh or refpose. Okay, and what it will say is it's processed our vertices and it's written the file. And if it says that, then generally you're successful and it has created some data for Unreal to recognize. Okay, so that's set up. That can go straight into the engine, which is great. Sometimes you might get some particular problems, and that's down to your selection. It's also down to these particular setups here. If you've selected pieces that have not got UV data, it will probably throw an error at you. Like I said before, because this is not a skinned object, it can go a bit potty, and it doesn't tend to like that very much. If you've got linked objects and are moving them around the screen, then there's specific setups that you have to mess around with in the engine for it to work. So for instance, if you're making a transforming robot and you have to move pieces around that don't conform to typical skeleton setups, then you'll have to adjust that in the engine. Right, what I'm then going to do is I'm going to shorten my time frame to 20 frames, and I'm going to save a max file as -fire, and I'm just going to make a very quick animation. I do not claim to be a great animator, but this is just something for us to check in the engine. So I'm going to select my IK goals here, and I'm going to pull them and mess around. So if you look at the range of movements we've got with the arms in terms of firing, there is about a couple of feet here. So what I'm going to do is push it forward, like so. It would help if I turn auto key on first, so apologies for this. Just select my goals again. And to push them in right to the start, like so, around frame 8, and pull them out to here. Then what I'm going to do is move them back and forward, and I'm going to do a shift copy on alternate frames, like so, so we've got this bang 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 action. And with all cycles we need to get a start and end to tie up. So if we just do a quick test, bang bang, so very fast. Really what we could do with doing, in all honesty, is make it a tiny bit longer. And let's see how 25 frames work. I'm just adding a couple of more repetitions into the okay. Let's have a look. Bang, bang, bang. Yeah, that's better. I think 25 frames works nicely for that. Okay. What you can also think about doing is possibly raising the torso and seeing how that works. So you could start off at this range and make him shoot up. That's something like that, perhaps. It's up to you how you want to animate him, really. I'm just doing a quick test so we can see how it's going to work in the actual engine. So, I'm going to fill in these animation data now. So we've got a frame range of 0 to 25. It's going to be called EdFire, and our animation... too fast for myself there. Our actual animation file name can be called edanimations or something, that's fine. Then I'm going to hit digest, and what that will do is it will key all of our objects for 26 frames, 0 to 25, and this total keys is just simply number of frames multiplied by the amount of mesh objects. If if you're wondering how that comes out. Now we can load up our animation manager, and we've got 2 copies because I shot too far forward to start with. I'm going to delete the first one, and what we need to do is select it, our second one, and click on move. And what that does is it moves it from the checker stage to our actual output. And then I just click save as, find the actual particular folder you're working in my case it's Ed 209, yours can be whatever you choose, and hit save. And it will now say amount of bones and the sequences. Press OK. Just to save some confusion, Unreal 3 will pick up all sorts of objects. So whereas I've got actually no bones at all, it is picking up these particular controllers and working them for us, which is a really handy thing. So where in most engines you're having to set up skinned meshes and whatever else, Unreal 3 will actually pick up these linked hierarchies and convert them into engine bones for you, so that's really helpful. Okay, so I'm going to call this section quits for now, and then we're going to look at using this data in the game engine. Okay, see you later.